So, welcome. This is my first ever time doing this type of thing, so let's just go with it. Anyways, any work I read will be, I will say the user or the author's name, and then I will proceed to tell you the title. It will also be linked down in the description. So, pretty much, this one is Light the Way. It is a deku fanfiction, and this is basically a Deku X Destiny one. So, hope you can like that. Chapter 1, Reborn in Light. And this is basically telling you which is focused right now. So basically book 1, which is all the way to chapter 40, is him into Forsaken. Book 2 is when he finally comes back. Book 3, and that starts on chapter 41. Book 3 starts at chapter 42, and book 3.5 with 109, and it's still on that one, so do with that what you will, but we start here. From the time where they were old enough to speak, Bakuno had been a menace. But who could judge a small child for acting in such a way? He takes just after his mother, they could, happily ignore the mental damage he inflicted daily on his green-haired friend. It took a long time for Izuku to realize Bakugo isn't his friend, but took even longer to realize Bakuno was never his friend. They were even close and through circumstance, not through any choice of their own. Their mothers were best friends after all. Not like how Izuku and Bakugo are best friends. No, they are real friends. They go so far to say that they're close family, and they could be outside of blood. Inko Mitsuki's sister, and Mitsuki is hers. No, Izuku knows Bakugo is nothing but a bully. Nothing all like his mother, though he certainly shares her anger and brashness. But Mitsuki is also kind and loving, even if she struggles to express it at times. Baku Katsuki is a tormentor who thrives on the damage he causes to others, even if as he sings praise to his own greatness. I'll be the number one hero, he loved to say. But he can't be a hero when you act like a villain, and that's all Bakugo has ever done. Granted, Endeavor might have something to say about that, but Zuko never much cared for Endeavor. It doesn't matter that Bakugo once saved Izuku from another group of bullies that he nearly pushed off the roof. It doesn't matter that, in that one instance, it's only that one instance. He'd fretted over Izuku's health like a mother does with Izuku's own, because he realized Izuku was perfectly healthy aside from the mental scarring and quite nearly dying. He descended on Izuku in pure rage. Bakugo's eyes had gone glassy, his eyebrows scrunched together, his fist began to pop, then he lunged forward and slammed Izuku to the ground. His hands went crackling over the exploded skin, as a result of his quirk burning through Izuku's shirt. He yelled and screamed, demanded, but his words bounced off unhearing ears, because in that moment, Izuku had finally decided he was done with Kachan. He glared at the boy who made his life a living hell since the day his quirk came in, and the first time in his life he spoke his mind. Fuck off, Bakugo. Izuku sneered at the boy as Bakugo's eyes blew wide in surprise. All things considered, it was quite understandable. Izuku had never cursed, he never raised his voice, and never once fought back. And now, though, Izuku knows the truth and pains to admit it, especially considering how he had once seen Bakugo. But Bakugo is a villain through and through. Izuku watched the hope that Bakugo could be an amazing hero inside of him. Something kept buried and nurtured for so long withered away to nothing and died. And that is through fresh in his mind he decided then and there he was done putting up with Bakugo's shit. Kachan was dead. Bakugo doesn't deserve the attention or praise that Izuku could give. From that point on, it was all downhill. It was only further driven when Bakugo told him to take a swan dive off the roof and hoped for his quirk in his next life. Exactly what he said in the anime and manga. Fuck did hearing that hurt. More than scars, more than the beatings, more than the abandonment tearing in his heart to shreds. It was those words that finally broke Izuku. Baku watched gleefully as Zuko shrunk in on himself, even as the horrors he said began to sink down his own mind. That glee turned into confusion, and that confusion turned to fear as the light in Izuku's eyes dimmed, and then finally died. He had gone too far, and he knew it. But the goons were standing behind him, laughing and giggling away at the dead-eyed look Izuku giving them. He couldn't go back on what he said. Not now. It was even then and there that Izuku knew for certain Bakugo couldn't be saved. He knew that the first real beating Bakugo gave him on the roof, that he could never be a hero, but he always held out hope that Bakugo could one day at least be saved. After this, though, no. Without saying a word, walked past the trio into the hall and ignoring the jeers from the goons, and Bakugo stood silent, staring at Izuku slowly retreating back. Izuku made his way to the fountain where he knew his hero analysis book would have been waiting. He couldn't bring himself to reach down and pull it out of the water. In fact, when Bakugo came down a few minutes later, the book was nothing but shreds. Soggy paper floating within the fountain water. He knew he went too far. The first time in his life, he felt the need to apologize, but he didn't know where Deku Izuku had gone. And without the trail of water leaking of his retrieved notebook, he had no luck finding the green-haired boy. For the first time, Bakugo realized he fucked up. Izuku decided to take a different way home to give himself a chance to get his emotions under control. It hurts to admit that he loved Bakugo, not in any romantic sense, but he tries hard to see Bakugo as a brother just as their moms had viewed each other as sisters. Izuku loves Bakugo even after all the self-harm and pain he'd caused. Sure, he knows that Bakugo can't be saved, just like he learned nearly a year ago that Bakugo can't be a hero, but it still hurts when someone that you love says something so cruel. You can't control the love no matter how hard you try, and that's just another lesson Izuku has to learn entirely too soon. Those words bounced around in his head. He can't help but cringe at the cruelty of it all. He knows he isn't just Bakugo's fault, and the teachers, students, hell, even some of the parents all play a part in torment Izuku faces daily. He's just a quirkless kid. The drain on society like him not having a quirk is any different than, say, the ability to stretch one's eyeballs out. In the grand scheme of things, they're both equally worthless, but one has a quirk and one the other doesn't. And this is my own commentary here, but all the quirks seen in MJ in the classroom right there, some of them were just so bad, I'd rather just be in Zuku's situation. Because who the hell cares that you have eyeballs that stick out like a snail? Not me. Fuck no. And I'm going back to the story now. And that's what matters to everyone. In the world of quirks, at least in Japan, being quirks is the same as being useless. It doesn't matter that stretchy eyeballs is worthless outside some very niche circumstance. Of course he never say that out loud. That's mean. And while he doesn't personally like Riku, the boy had never done much to bother Izuku. That's not the point. The point is, why do they treat me so bad when I can do exactly what they can do without a quirk? Izuku shakes his head and steps into the tunnel. One hand clutching the bag tighter as his thoughts continue to spiral. Quirkless isn't useless, he says over and over, more for himself than anyone. Quirk isn't useless. I agree, especially right now. It spins around with a shout, startled by the voice directly behind him. Find a large mass of black slime, disgusting green, vile slime filled with sewage and soggy money. If I'm being honest, I can't say I'm really sorry about this kid. He's on my tail and I need to hide. The sludge surges forward and engulfs Zuko entirely, closing around his face, and he's pulled deeper into the liquid. He's gonna miss some quirkless freak. Zuko gasps as the sludge immediately fills his mouth. He can feel it forcing its way into his nose, down his throat, even as he reaches up to squeeze it tightly. He knows that won't keep him alive, and if he gets out of here, he's gonna have a nasty bruise. He can still fight to the very bitter end. If he learned anything from Bakugo, is that sometimes you have to fight back, so he does. Sluggishly kicking his legs in an attempt to escape, one hand squeezes on his throat and can keep it closed, another digs further into the slime. For the man, sludge thing's eyes. His fingers find something solid and tries the best to lunge it forward and squeeze whatever it is tight. causing the sludge around him to scream. It's a small victory and he'll take it. You little shit. I was gonna have to make this painless, but clearly that's not what he wanted. The sludge around him squeezed tighter, constricting his body until he could feel his bones creaking and grinding together. He can't stop the scream that escapes his throat. At this time, he can't stop the sludge from moving deeper in his body. With all his air gone, there's no way to pull in more, and Zuko finds himself sinking into the darkness. He was not telling his mom he loved her before he left this morning. In that final thought, the darkness takes him. Young man! Zuko slowly regains consciousness. His throat pulses and his body aching. Young man! A soft slap to the face pulls him out, and leaving blackness into the bright light of the living. And he immediately squints his eyes. Oh, good. There's nothing good at how it feels right now. Did he get hit by a truck, or was he isekai? Truck-kun? Well, whoever is sitting there and snorts some music, not quite. Zuko mumbles to himself and sits up, wondering which god cursed his life. Are you okay, young man? A booming voice asks. He can't help but recognize it from somewhere. Slowly, so slowly, he opens his eyes and looks around, spotting the head of blonde hair. Zuko freezes, with his eyes blow wide open, causing him to once more hiss in pain. All Might? Yes, it's I, All Might. All Might strikes a pose, flanking for the invisible cameras. I must apologize, young. All Might looks at him, expecting Midoriya. Young Midoriya, you see. He pulls out 2 bottles from his cargo shirts. The sludge rail escaped in the sewers, and I must admit, it was quite confusing down there. Zuko's pretty sure he sees sludge not an agreement, at least the best he can craft in such a tiny space. How did it fit that much slime into the bottles? I actually have a question for that too. Unfortunately, the fact I wasn't fast enough to catch him because you had to suffer. All Might stuffs the ball back in his pocket and bows before Zuko's daughter. Zuko laid him in front of him and placate the man. There's no need to apologize, All Might. The man's booming laugh rings out once more, and while Zuko normally loves hearing it, he can't, but it's not helping his headache. All Might, could I? The note is dropped on his lap. All Might's finger scrawled across 2 pages and said, yes, that's amazing. He's certainly fanboy over it later, but something he needs to know. I'm sorry to do this, young Midoriya. I must get this one. He pats his pocket with like a Zuko could forget the villain stuffed into them, to the police. In that moment, Zuko notices the cap on one of the balls twists off, falling to the ground. All Might bends his knee and leaps away. Zuko rushes forward to grab the cap and secure the ball, but All Might jumps, and Zuko can't do anything but grab on. Wait, the bottle! All Might looks down in confusion and quickly turning into disappointment. Yomura, I love fans, but you need to let go. Do you not realize how far up in the air we are? Apparently he does, because the suddenly turns into his concerns. Not a second later, perhaps after we land. They plummeted towards one of the higher rooftops in the direction on top of. That was very young. I was trying to tell you the bottle cap fell off. He squeaks and he realizes the cut off All Might, but plows on through his embarrassment. Right before you jumped, the cap fell off. I was gonna put it back on when you jumped, but before I could tell you already leapt into the air. Oh, Zuko scoffs, sitting up to look at the man. Though you don't mind, I do have a question for you. If he's being honest with himself, he's not surprised, All Might's answer. Through that doesn't mean it'll hurt any less. But no, he understands, especially after seeing the scar. He can't help but shiver at the image in his mind. He's thankful, though, that All Might was so kind at how he answered him. Certain ways he could have replied. That's for sure. Young Midoriya, I want to tell you, you can be quirkless hero. You can be a quirkless hero. I want to tell you, every child out there can be a hero. And I want it to be the truth. But after what happened, I can't say it, and it did not feel like a lie. As you are now, unfortunately, no. Zuko gazes fall to the ground, tears in his eyes. A large, though certainly smaller now, hand falls on his shoulder and looks up at All Might through it. That's not to say you can't be amazing here. You just need help. If you truly intend to pursue heroics, I suggest starting in the support course. Build yourself tools that you'll need, and then transfer to hero work. And if that's not in the cards for you, perhaps you could become a doctor or policeman. He tears slightly at that. He realizes All Might is right. Now, how about we get off this roof, young Midoriya? What kind of hero have I left up here all alone? I'm not going to say how many, but That's a lot better. It's fair. He exactly worked on his body. If you know, you know about that one. It's fair. He exactly worked on his body. He knows he had noodle arms, no stamina, so All Might certainly brought up valid points. So yes, it hurt that he can't be here as he is now, but given time training support items, All Might thinks he can do it. Then Izuku is sure he can find a way. Izuku always knew All Might was a good person. For the man to go out of his way to comfort him and tell him his dream is possible, but that it required hard work instead of just crushing it, he can't help but smile. So he steps out the building at two part ways, each giving a wave to each other off and finishing the other good day. Izuku begins to work his way home, begins to work his way back home. It's not the best day, but it certainly is not the worst, and he can't wait to tell his mom about the conversation. Izuku gets maybe 10 steps before he hears a loud explosion, eyes drawn to the sky where the smoke begins to rise. Another explosion goes off and he realizes it, and he recognizes it. I'm going to take some water right now. Rushing towards the sounds, he finds a large crowd being held back by heroes and police, behind all burning buildings and the sludge villain from before. For a moment, Zuko is ashamed, but he squashes that down. The villain didn't escape because of him, and he's not to blame for this. While he wants to blame Ome, it certainly isn't his fault either. Mistakes happen. Why aren't they helping that boy? What boy? Zuko looks at the slime and narrows his eyes, and he can see an explosion rippling from the slime away from the blonde-haired, red-eyed boy's face, Bakugo. He looks left and spotting Death Arm standing idly and saying there's nothing they can do and they'll need to wait for help. But Bakugo isn't going to survive that long. He rushes forward, shoving bystander and police alike as he sprints towards the villain. When he gets close enough, the large eye shifts to him and the villain grumbles, throwing his sledge tentacle to try and knock him off his feet, but he dodges under it, grabs his bag, pulls out a pencil before tossing it in the bag at the villain, blinding him for a moment. The bag falls down and Zuko leaps in there and slams the pencil in the exposed eye, one with 3 solid points in the body that he can see. The villain shrieks and the sludge retracts, giving Bakugo the space he needs to suck a huge breath of air. Zuko shoves his hand into the slime and he grabs Bakugo's arm. Digging into his feet and ground, he pulls with all his might. The still shrieking villain releases his hold on Bakugo, slips out, collapsing on Izuku. Before standing with a growl, he aimed at Zubo. He doesn't care though. He wraps his arm around Bakugo's waist and pulls, dragging 2 away from the villain, and he's trying to descend on him in a rage. He shoots out another tendril that killed the pest that caused him so much trouble today, bounces them between them, and with booming laugh, he throws a punch so strong the wood pressure splatters the villain against the wall. Izuku collapses to the ground, dragging Bakugo with him. The heroes rushed forward to check the two, demanding to know why Zuko ran into the dangerous situation. Bakugo, on the other hand, is praised for his quick thinking, he wasn't the one that started a fire or was struggling to breathe in the sludge. It irritates Izuku and so does the look Bakugo shoots him, but he ignores it and the people accosting him until they finally release him with a warning. After all that's a blur. Izuku remembers walking away, his head held high even as the heroes and police and Bakugo try to shame him. He decides to take a shortcut through the alley. That's when Bakugo finds him. A crack on pop where all he hears before Izuku shoved against the wall, his childhood tormentor standing over him with a wicked and sharp smile on his face. It's the same story every other day, and no amount of desire can change that. You know, I almost felt bad for what I said today, Deku, Bakugo says. His hands continue to pop as he steps closer. But you had to go and act like a hero. He slams his fist in the wall and explodes, small bits of brick exploding out of the impact. One cuts Bakugo's cheek, but he doesn't care to notice. I didn't need you to save me. I had everything under control. In that moment, Izuku finally snaps. His patience for the day worn so thin it might as well be microscopic. He scoffs, glares at the boy towering over him, and slaps his hand aside, attempting to walk away. You didn't have shit under control, Ka-chan. Bakugo's eyes narrow at the nickname. Izuku gets quite a lot of pleasure from it. If I hadn't stepped in, they were gonna let you die while they waited for someone else to come and save your sorry ass. Maybe he's gone too far, but Izuku is sick and tired of being stepped on, especially today. So he keeps pushing. In fact, you're lucky I stepped in at all to save you at all. After all the shit you've done, you're lucky I didn't sit there and watch. He doesn't mean that. but he already regrets saying it. Zuko turns around and begins to walk away, desperately trying to keep his shaking body under control. It doesn't make it more than 2 steps before a hot exploding hand lands on his shoulder and is thrown across the alley, rolling as he stops and hits as his back slams against the wall. His breath is knocked out of him and clutches at his chest. Balco doesn't give him a chance to get his cherished lungs under control, though. Instead, he jumps forward and kicks Zuko in the stomach, the boy curling in from the impact. Coughing and struggling to breathe, as Zuko can do nothing as Balco scoops him up and slams him full-bodied against the wall. He begins to slip down, vision dimming, but Balco grips his shirt, holding him and punching him repeatedly in the stomach. Finally, he lets him fall, and Zuko vomits to the side, bloody and shaking. I'm not... As he coughs up some blood, starting himself, going to apologize, Bakugo. There's no going back now. He has something to say, and he doesn't care how much angry Bakugo gets right now. Maybe later he'll regret it, but right now, no. You'll never be a hero. He's starting to wheeze as you act like it. If you always act like Zuko claps to the ground, rolling over, he's staring up at the sky, incredibly angry Bakugo as a villain. Baku's face darkens as he reaches down and lifts Zuko back up, the boy dangling off the ground from his surprisingly strong though incredibly tattered school shirt. He doesn't say anything, just a glare from a moment before gently setting Zuko back down on his feet, something that has him quite surprised, at least until he looks at Baku. The rage is gone, replaced with the calm, and that's terrifying. One arm pulls back, already popping and crackling, and Baku throws it forward. One-sided fight ends with an explosion of the light rocketing Zuko across the empty alleyway into the opposite wall, his head bouncing off the hard bricks. With a dull thud, Baku steps closer, eerily calm, as he prepares for another attack, but he quickly realizes Zuko hasn't moved. His previously bright eyes staring through him. His calm rage is washed away, replaced with horror and panic. He stares at the sight before him. Zuko's dull and empty eyes stare back at him, completely unaware of his surroundings. He drops a knee to wave his hand in front of Zuko's face, but nothing he does brings the boy back. He prods, shakes, and screams at the boy to the ground, begging him to answer, but all he received is silence. It starts how it ended, with an explosion of light. The boy lunges forward, gasping for air, and he looks around, bringing his hand to his head as his body adjusts to the abrupt awakening. Floating above his left shoulder he spots something, a small mechanical thing with a rotating glowing eye at its center. The dull edges of the shell rotate and click as it zips back and forth to study him before settling in front of him, casting a cone of light over his body. "Hello, Guardian," the thing says, its center eye flashing as it speaks. The shell spins again as if it were to guess he says some object seems nervous. It doesn't reply, instead continuing to study his surroundings. Before him, a large wall, its shadow casting the surroundings in the darkness between him and it. Hundreds, if not thousands of cars, rusted and broken, pile on one another as far as he can see. The soft wind blows through, rustling the leaves of the nearby trees and flowers around him. He can't help but admire the flowers' beauty, the white, the blue, the pink, the purple petals billowing in the breeze. Over the sounds of rustling leaves, he hears a cry, an echoing of words he doesn't understand. The thing floating near us spins a place. "We need to go," it zips once more, nudging him with a mechanical body to stand. He does so, following the interesting jabbering as it leads him deeper into the shadow towards the tall wall towering over him, and a single open door tucked away in its dark, inky depths. From behind, something crashes to the ground and he spins around to look at the source, but he sees nothing. There's a slight shimmering by collection of rusted cars associated debris. His eyes narrow as the shimmering doesn't move, so he shrugs, turns around, and jogs towards the door, following the creature that woke him up. The duo pass through a maze of tall wall support beams, and many others appear to be rusted, though. And with one look to be covered in something red, it pulses slightly under the light shining down from above. Dismissing it, the two continued until they stumbled towards a large chasm. The bridge connecting two sides, having seemingly rusted away for some time past, Now lost in the darkness below, you need to jump, his guide says, gliding over the empty space, turning to watch him. He's uncertain, but the banging of his feet and cries of something drives him forward. He leaps even though he knows he won't clear the gap. However, he doesn't crash into the darkness below as he thought he would. Instead, he finds himself gliding across the gap, small wisps of wind visible under his feet. He's fascinated by it, but doesn't have the time to ponder or display before he's gently settling on the rusted, broken edge of the bridge. The echoing of footsteps grows louder as he spins around to look as he's been standing for a moment before, his eyes landing on whatever it is that was following him, a strange creature with many arms, bodies played with odd armor and equally odd markings, clicking and chattering amongst themselves as they study each other across the gap. One leading the pack raises his weapon short and points it at them. "Fallen," the floating eye says from behind. "Run." He doesn't stop and consider the words. Instead, he's following the things of vice and sprinting away. He's followed by the sounds of gunshots, large flaming slugs flying past and over him. He rounds the corner, cutting off the line of sight, and starts an electrified bullet as it curves slightly to try and follow before slamming into the wall. There's no way that for those creatures fallen behind them to follow the sounds and slants before them. They decide to move deeper into the complex. Chapter 2. Hard Lessons and Iron Lords. And if you had any doubts, you can figure out where this starts off on. You can figure out where this takes place for all the Destiny viewers. Or people who play Destiny. Destiny 1, that is. I didn't get a chance to introduce myself before. I'm the kind of guy that moves from the object to object before returning to the boy. I'm a ghost, a creation of a traveler. You can call me Sylph. I really don't know how to pronounce the name they gave, so Sylph it is. He tilts his head in confusion before they continue walking. I'm not entirely sure what our purpose is, but I know we all, ghosts that is, feel the drive to find someone worthy to wield the light. The boy holds up a hand and swirl of fire appears before him, coalescing into a slightly pulsating ball of solar energy. The light casts shadow over the wall of broken, dilapidated buildings before he dismisses it, plunging the pair into subdued darkness. Exactly like that. Well done. He smiles as self-enthusiasm, joy bubbling from within as she zips back and forth. For someone without a face, she's certainly expressive. That's amazing. Most guardians take some quite to learn how to use the light. And by the way, this is true. The fact that you can barely use the light when you first start off is because, quite literally, you're the main character. It's simple as that. I'm not going to get into the specifics of that. I'm reading. I give a little commentary how I see things, but I continue with the story most of all. Let's just say you are considered the only guardian that the Vanguard truly does fear. Because, yeah, you can probably guess why. The two continue their trek through the abandoned town. Deeper and deeper they move into unknown territory until they find themselves standing before a single standing building. The surrounding area reduced to rubble, but something large in the tracks or anything go by. Atop the building, just near the peak, sits a strange white symbol painted on the brickwork. Scattered throughout the area, they spot guns, staves, strange containers, no small discarded armor. And that's a fallen symbol. He turns to look at Sylph as she drifts closer to inspect. She hardly spec against the white paint the symbol is made. I don't recognize it. Don't recognize the house. But this must mean that we're in fallen territory. We're gonna need the care, especially we're gonna need to be care. The screech of an alarm cuts Sophie off, and the boy spins around to look in the direction it's coming from. Eyes landing on a tall, bulky creature with holding a flaming shotgun. Run, Guardian! I'm pretty sure Sylph is female, but I'm not gonna try that. He takes off the opposite direction, Sylph reappearing behind him as he runs. The sounds of pounding feet, strange chattering followed behind. He grown even closer as they run past the broken and crushed perimeter in the distance. The pair can see semi-standing building. They rush towards him, holding lost their pursuers in the maze of rubble. They draw closer and hope looms in their chest, but it immediately crushed as more fallen claw out from the buildings, cutting off their escape. You're gonna have to fight. He nods and pulls his energy in hand once more, this time intending to throw it at the creature instead of letting it sputter out. He pulls his arm back and tosses it. The grenade, as it lands, explodes into a large ball of fire, a miniature sun igniting the long abandoned tapestry around where it landed as well. As the fallen had been blocking this path, the fire continues to eat everything around it. The dregs, burn to a crisp. After a moment, the fire sputters out on its own, leaving a smoking blackened crater in its wake. From behind, the larger fallen comes to a stop, raises his weapon, training on its back. With a loud boom, it fires, slamming slugs fly over and past him, leaving burning indents in the broken wall he just scaled. Take its weapon. Sylvie hovers over a burnt husk, staring directly into discarded pistol. He lunges forward, grabs it before peeking over the rubble and shot at its pursuers. Another dreg falls with a scream, but his onslaught seems to have no effect on the larger foe. That captain is going to be a problem. He can't help but agree, nodding his head once more, but the fallen fall, now dubbed captain, continues to press forward, completely uncaring of the shots he's taking. The large blue shield floats around its body, absorbing in each and every one of its shots. Trying another grenade once more, he pulls his energy into his palm, tossing it from behind cover, the ball of energy landing close to the captain. He stares at it in confusion before exploding to a shower of lightning. The captain's shield shatters, previously seeming impervious to creatures now clearly taking damage from the arc grenade nearby. You learn to use different grenades so fast. Soph preaches. It screeches in agony and rage. Lunging forward, the captain turns angrily into the direction of the guardian and goes and stomps forward, weapon raised once more. He peeks out from behind in cover and takes a shot, the bullet piercing the captain's head. It falls to the ground, dead, but not before it manages to pull the trigger of his shotgun, muscles having contracted just as it dies. There's no time to dodge, so you can only watch horrors as slugs impact his body, ripping the chest and abdomen to shreds. He falls to the ground in agony, his blood spills over, painting the bricks of the ground a harsh red. Guardian! Soph rushes forward and hovers worriedly over his dying body, but she can do nothing but watch as the eyes grow duller and duller, until finally he passes into the void. She panics worriedly that he won't come back when she calls for him, but she can feel the connection. It's strong and it's tied to something, but she can't see it. She can't see, but she can certainly feel it. With all of my heavily pulls, light explodes from their tiny body, enveloping the dead boy before her. As it spreads out along his body, the slugs lodged within are expelled. His wounds close, the blood around him vanishing in an instant. He jerks forward, gasps, much like the first time meeting Soph, but he looks around in confusion. Before horror sets in, he quickly reaches down to pat his body. He looks for the bullet holes he knows should be there, but he finds nothing. Just smooth and intact skin. Guardian. He looks at himself in confusion. Must be obvious because she let out a wheat. Can she cry? Giggle as he zooms forward to rest against his chest. One of her arms coming to hold her against him. I'm so glad you're okay, she thought, bury herself in his arms against her chest, buried under his arm against his chest. He can still hear her clearly, but can also hear in his head, something he'll have to follow on later. He opens his mouth. The first time since waking up he speaks. I'm sorry I worried you, Soph. She huffs, but she can't tell she's just posturing. Don't scare me like that. I know you can. I know we can bring a guardian back, but doesn't want to test it so soon. Her sadness washed over her, and he can't help but bring up his other arm to squeeze her tightly. The dulled edges of her shell brushing against his bare skin. She's surprisingly warm under her sadness, though. He can feel the terror she momentarily experienced. What would happen if? He paused, wondering if it's a good idea. If you can't bring me back. She sighed and shuffles backwards out of his arms, slowly floating up until their eye to the mechanical eye to look down. Her shell twisting and turning as she conjures his question. I'm not sure. Never been a ghost to lost her guardian, at least that I know of. He decides not to pursue the line of thinking. It's just a better idea not to die than to consider the alternative. I know you're thinking, Guardian. He startles suddenly, wondering if she can read his mind. He's really certain she can because she giggles again. As much as I hate to admit it, it's very likely that you'll die again, many times. In fact, don't worry. Each time you're likely to be terrified, I can't bring you back. But as you saw here, something bad. Sometimes bad things just happen. Well, that's horrifying, but that's okay because you're gonna learn as we go. Trial by fire. You'll get better at it. You'll get better at wielding the light. And then we'll never have to worry about it again. And when we just get to the last city, his confusion must be apparent because she pauses. That's what I'm talking to about. The last city under the shadow of the traveler. She spins around looking at the distance. He squints and he's sadly afraid he can make something out huge in the sky, but uncertain. Anyway, that's where you learn how to be a proper guardian. I can teach you a lot, but there are people who are better at it than me. Think of me as a guide for now. We're partners too, of course. And you're Ghost, you're my guardian, but my mission currently is to see you to safety to the city. He spins back to inspect their surroundings, her single eye falling on the dead captain. I guess since we took care of the fallen here, we can go back and see if there's anything we can use that building. Maybe sometime to make our trip easier? We might find you some armor. She trips excitedly bouncing in place. The fallen scavengers, after all. Maybe some better weapons, too. He chuckles and she turns to look at him, a quiet giggle escaping her lips. It turns out that not dying actually is harder than he originally sounded. Who could have thought? That's not to say he didn't try hard to stay alive, but as well as Sylve said, sometimes bad things happen. They just happen. And happen they did. They weren't on the move for more than 2 days after their first encounter with the Fallen when our guardian was vaporized by a massive explosion. They hadn't seen a giant walker in the horizon, but most certainly saw them. His ration was 16 times that day, and not all of them were overly obnoxious walking artillery, and not all of them were due to the overly obnoxious walking artillery cannon. No, it turns out he simply got lucky with his first encounter with the captain, because the next one proceeded to humble him 7 times before he finally managed to bring it down. Between the captain and a swarm of fallen comrades, he didn't stand a chance, and he spent more time getting shot in the back than actually shooting back. Apparently, running from the fallen isn't in the cards. That's a lesson they both learned the hard way. At one point, there was a slight scare as of a Spartan and an Archon stalking them in the distance. Thankfully, the pair were able to escape that one, but the image of dead ghosts and shattered Guardian's armor hanging off it like trophies will forever haunt their dreams. On the bright side, after the initial encounter and the destruction of the Walker, they were accosted by the Fallen again for nearly 3 weeks. That honestly might just be her Guardian to try to stay positive. But instead of being hunted by the Fallen, they were hunted by a creature they call the Hive, which were equally, if not more terrifying than the Archon. This is true. For those who don't play Destiny, the Hive are infinitely worse. And since this is taking place after Space Marine 2, I'm going to assume a lot of people played Space Marine 2. They are essentially kind of like the Tyranids. I can argue they're worse in some categories, but not as bad as the Tyranids. They're worse in some categories, but they're not as bad as others. After all, Warhammer is just a crazy absurd in power scaling. So, I won't get too much into that. There's going to be Warhammer people trying to roast me in the comments, if people even comment. At one point, they were dragged to the inky depths of their burrows, the pale creatures clutching at their claws as his bare flesh with jagged claws. It was there that he met another guardian for the first time, the woman covered in open sores and oozing pus of their vile substances. She told the pair that one of the wizards saw her life but kept her alive for some reason or another. They were fearful then that they haven't relieved himself quite yet. He hadn't revealed himself quite yet as a guardian. The pair had been quite literally kidnapped by the nightmares, hindering his ability to use his light. According to the light bearers turned lightless, they had hardly known he too was a guardian. He had likely met the same fate as her. They did end up escaping with the help of the Lifeless Guard. Thankfully, they scavenged plenty of weaponry that was more than willing to share with his cellmates. As well, with a well-placed grenade and an angry out for vengeance at his side, they razed the breeding site to the ground and crushed the wizard that stole her light to dust. The woman pocketed a small amount of it in a glass vial for good luck. I'm not sure how much luck there is carrying a creature that stole your light, but who is he to judge? She extracted her pound of flesh and got her revenge. That's all that mattered to her. They eventually managed to find her discarded ghost's shell among hundreds of others, something that she would need to report when they finally reached the city, which she gently picked up and cradled as she cried. They parted ways with a handshake of a promise to reconnect at a later date within the city. He hopes she'll do well. He certainly knows how hard it is to survive. The slow journey across the desolate landscape went on for months, more before than they ran to another civilization, a small collection of survivors that built an encampment under the overhang of a towering mountain. They hadn't exactly welcomed him with open arms. There were many whispers of warlord tosses away, but he continued to smile, trading weapons or other items scavenged on his travels for a proper set of commissioned armor and other things he might need for his trek. The blacksmith made his gear. Caitlin was quite an interesting woman. Her husband, Alex, had a criminally quiet man, but Soph and her guardian enjoyed the companionship. While they were waiting for the armor to be finished, they offered a place within their home. It turns out Alex had a beautiful voice, even though he was incredibly shy around new people. Generally chose to remain quiet on the third night together, he sang for them. Sophie recorded each and every song for the listener and eventually move on, much to Caitlin's amusement and Alex's embarrassment. During the time within the settlement, they happily helped anyone and everyone who came to them. People growing bolder and longer they kept the peace. Apparently there have been rogue librarians that consider themselves warlords even in this day and age. For the Destiny viewers, you know what time this is. The mayor let them know that not normally, at least, the Iron Lords will come through every so often to ensure they're still safe. In fact, they were due to pass through the area sooner on some unknown mission. Supposedly, there though only be a few. There have been rumors that something wiped out a large portion of their ranks. The folks of the zone have been warned beforehand that it might be the best to evacuate the area for some reason, though the Iron Lords couldn't say why, no matter how hard they were pushed. 4 days later, his armor had been completed and presented to him in an ornate box, a gift provided by a collection of children who quickly realized he was happy to fly them around to show his light. Soph was ecstatic, bouncing between the box and his gears, not so subtly rushing him to try it on. Upon putting on his gear and stepping back into the main room, Caitlin looked at it and called them the part of the order that was called warlocks, hence his dress. Soph scoffed and called them rogues, but honestly he didn't mind one way or another. It would protect him, that's all that mattered. That's nothing special, Caitlin said, walking to adjust his collar. I'm sure you'll find much better gear than the fancy city of yours, but this should protect you until then. His eyes rise up to meet his own. He smiles, blinding the woman. It's perfect. I'll always treasure it. They hadn't known each other for long, but their time short together, they'd become close family. She reaches forward and pulls him into a hug, wishing good luck on his adventures while Alex watches from the sofa, a soft smile on his face. That night, they made a small going-away dinner, and following morning, he's packing to get back on the road again. They say the goodbyes and give one final hug to their kind hosts, snapping a picture thanks to Soph, before they set out toward the main gate. As they draw near, they notice a rather large crowd slipping through the people, gently moving aside when needed, and makes its way to find a small collection of 9 armor-clad people, each one wielding a rather large axe or a blade on their backs. Ah, a kind-looking man steps forward from his companions, making his way toward him. You must be a guardian the mayor was telling me about. Soph peers between them and studies the man. Twisting and turning, a ghost appears before them as she steps to speak with it. My name is Lord Saladin, and these are my fellow Iron Lords. It's a pleasure to meet you, Lord Saladin. He takes his offer and shakes it. You as well, as he nods behind Saladin. I don't have a name yet. He chuckles and just before itself. She is Self, my ghost. Well met. Selden offers a nod to Self, who's still some way of speaking with his ghost. Both of you. Selden turns to his companion and walks over. You don't mind me asking, what are you doing here out this way, young guardian? Someone's man eyeing him suspiciously. Rumors of a new rising warlord fresh in their minds. I was actually passing through here on my way to the last city. I stopped here to trade and commission some gear. I've been having a rough time in the wilds. The hive and fallen are treacherous creatures. That they are. Silent chuckles. There was a strain. Unfortunately, there is much worse out there than even the five and fallen, my friend. Oh? Looking past Silent and Cameron, is that why you're all here? Off to fight something? Something flinch. He certainly doesn't miss the shred tears. He quickly realized he said something wrong. I apologize. I didn't mean to dredge up bad memories. Silent lets out a sad sigh. It's nothing of your fault, but we're going to hopefully destroy something potentially catastrophic, which is why we're hoping to convince everyone here to evacuate, just in case of our battle. So Phil back and Salen's ghost vanishes. What is Siva? As she asks, Salen slightly curses them for spelling the plans. Irish mentioned you might need more help with fighting it. Or you need assistance, Lord Saladin. He cuts his companion off with a raised hand, eyeing the guardian before him. You weren't trying to help, Guardian. His friends shift uncomfortably behind him as he reaches forward to remove one of the blades resting on his back. There's normally more of this, but we don't have the time. We accept you into the Iron Wolves. You can provide your metal alongside us. I must warn you. His gaze turns out hard on his companions close to the Guardian, each fit stating determination. You may not survive the encounter. You have lost nearly all of our own to this menace. Your light means nothing to it. It happily extinguishes it to achieve its goals. Silent holds out the blade for him, and he hesitantly reaches out and grasps it. Good. When we are done, I will personally escort you to the last city. Silent turns out and walks, leaving him and his companions, some of who pat him on the shoulder. Sif floats closer and leans down towards her. Are you sure this is a good idea? He nodded once, setting the axe on his back, imitating the other islands around him. Don't need help. What kind of person would I be if I abandoned them? If I can't save one life self, I'll happily give my own to do it. He, on the other, trail after Saladin, the man giving him one final warning to the settlement to evacuate before the group sets out on their mission. During the 2-week travel, the group eventually split away, leaving Self and Lady Thorger, Lord Feldwinter, Lord Cheladon, Lord Saladin, and 3 others who choose to remain unnamed. The remaining 2 left for the bunker Triaval, Lady Ashravev leading the assault in hopes of overtaking the artillery overlooking the battlefield. The hope was that while holding the bunker they could distract the AI Warmind Raspedian so that Lady Joler could lead them to the site. 6 destroy the replication chamber. 6 to destroy the replication chamber. He's not entirely sure that it is, but the general idea was based on each islander's shared horrifying stories of Siva and the chaos that spread throughout their ranks. If we destroy the chamber or at least seal it, Siva cannot spread. That's the goal. That's the mission. What is Siva? He asked, eyeing its compatriots. It's Saladin who answered. Siva. It's a self-replicating nanotechnology under the control of the AI Rasputin. We originally set out to find it to potentially use it to fortify the last city, but something went wrong. Rasputin turned on us. He left it at that, turning around to stare off into the distance, the fire to his back. While they traveled together, each person take time to train the newest wolf in both combat, newly acquired axe as well as his weapons. They held the augments for his gun. They helped to augment his guns for easier use as well as upgrading his gear with old and ends of stumbled across to travel. By the time they reached their destination, he was more comfortable in his capabilities and better protected, though he knew he still had much to learn. Far off in the distance, they could hear the sounds of firing artillery, the sign they've been waiting for. Unfortunately, it didn't take long for their guns to be silenced. No matter how often they tried to contact the team, no one answered. They'll fight to the bitter end. We'll do the same. All or nothing. Let's get this to work. The team descended into the ravines, the Forgotten Pass. Now, thankfully, relatively cleared of Siva due to Lady Ashraven's sacrifice. The fight isn't easy by any means. They still claw tooth and nail to reach their destination, but what would have been slaughter instead can incredibly difficult battle. Unfortunately, while making their way over the bridge of the ravine, one of the Iron Lords perish, their bodies crashing to the ground as the frames and Siva constructs to descend upon them. There's no time to mourn the loss. The group moves further through Siva affected wastelands until they come in upon the entrance of the where the Site 6 is located. Having followed the Siva tendrils that snaked out to harass them during their initial attack, two more lords fall. During their original group of 8 turned into 5. Much like the first companion, they must be left behind. Rushing forward, they follow the Siva tendrils through the broken, shattered, and infested rock, moving deeper and deeper until finally they find the Site 6 before them, surrounded by ropey nanite tendrils that cast shadows and harsh red lights, the replication chamber. The tower over the largest building the Guardians ever seen, even with it sitting before them, struggling to come to terms with its sheer size, young wolf. His attention snaps on. You stay with me. Guard the entrance to the replication chamber. You will protect them. And just as the remaining companions, each proceeding to pull small explosives out of their bags while they set up the charges. If they can't destroy the chamber, we can at least steal Siva so they can never escape again. With nods, the group descends further into the complex, moving across the bridges connecting to the rocky cavern to the replication chamber. Instead, they find a long hallway that leads to a gigantic open door. Silent and the young guardian and young wolf station themselves, patrolling to the hallway, the frames, constructs, while the remaining 3 rush forward to finish the job. Unfortunately, it seems that there's a ruse discovered, because from within the chamber, the lords and ladies assaulted by large Siva tendrils the size of tree trunks. They went back and forth, quickly grabbing and crushing their exposed ghosts to dust before their very eyes. They rushed to put up charges while seemingly fighting back against the tendrils, spewing fresh nanites into the air, which burn into their weapons and their armor, affecting them. It becomes clear quite quickly that the nanites aren't just eating their gear. In fact, the young wolf and Silent protect the entrance. Shambling constructs clad in Iron Lord armor rush forward to assault the pair. Standing side by side, they hold the line. Each time they knock down empty shelves down, fresh Shiva flows into it, reanimating the inert nanites within. While the pair fights to protect the entrance, 4 within themselves being quickly overrun. The nose quickly spewing nanites into the air, which begin to eat into their flesh as well as their armor. It's agonizing. As Lee Jolder sets the final explosion, she looks around to see. She realizes none of them will be making out alive, not with Siva infesting each of their bodies. She knows what she needs to do. And while her companions fight the nanites, tendrils assaulting them, she makes her way towards the door. She places the nanite-infested hand on the control button, closing it. Sad turns to look back as she does. He realizes that she intends to do. Dropping his weapon, he rushes toward the closing door, leaving the young wolf to defend him on his own. As he draws closer, the door shuts with a boom. A moment later, explosive detonate, wielding the door shut from within. No! Bangs on the door for Saladin bangs the door in frustration. Tears were streaming down his face. The constructs of the young wolf have been fighting off on the ground, lifeless hulks one more. Now the inert Siva no longer able to puppet them. To the bitter end, Lord Saladin. He looks at the young wolf standing at the opposite end of the hall. Nods once. They weren't able to destroy the chamber, but they could at least seal it to the bitter end. They check back at Saladin, even self unable to find something to speak on. Though they want to collect the armor of the fallen comrades, Saladin says it best to toss them into reed, sure that nanites can't spread more than they already have. Though the looks of things around them, everything outside the replication chamber is dead. Reluctantly agrees to gather the remaining armors from the constructs and toss into the darkness surrounding the replication chamber. Neither saying a word as they disappear from sight. The area around the Cosmodrome where Siva once held sway is renamed the Plague Lands, and unfortunately it appears the small colony that Guardians found was part of it. They returned, all found were ruins, bodies scattered throughout, each and every person infected with Siva. Silent and the Guardians gathered the bodies and placed them on a giant bonfire, standing vigil over the burning volumes until nothing but ash remains. He left Saladin at one point to return to the blacksmith's house, where he found a single picture of the two together. Each smiling widely with tears in the eyes. He sat down, returned to Saladin to continue the journey out of the Plaguelands. As a promise, Saladin indeed escorted him to the last city. If you never need of me, young wolf, all you need to do is call and I will come. With that, he turned around and walked off. Stating he needed to return to Fellwinter's Peak. They watched him go until he disappeared into the distance. Until we meet again, Lord Saladin.